So there's been a lot of discussion, maybe the most talked about player, quarterback, and especially when it comes to contracts in the NFL the last handful of years has been Brock Purdy. We obviously all know Brock Purdy, last overall pick in the draft, so he has made pretty much no money for being an NFL player. Obviously still really good salary almost anywhere else you go in the world, but no money as far as being a professional athlete and as far as being a quarterback who has been to multiple conference championship games. Now, anyone who is listening to Tony and I talk about the draft knows my opinion on Brock Purdy. I wouldn't pay Brock. I believe wholeheartedly this is a Kyle Shanahan team. I was willing to draft another quarterback to replace Brock, which some people are going to take that as crazy. Some people are going to take it as not. But here's the thing I think getting lost in this. The reality of, because everyone's now, there's complaining because the Niners are having to, they didn't re-sign Hufanga, they didn't re-sign Greenlaw, and they're going to lose other guys because when you're paying your quarterback, you're going to have to make other financial decisions. Now, they did just sign George Kittle to a huge contract. Fred Warner got his money, and they signed the corner. So there is going to be guys who get paid besides the quarterback, but you have to be smart about this. And that's really what this all comes down to. If good teams can sign their quarterback to a lot of money, not just because their quarterback is great, but because they are good at drafting, they are good at developing, they are a good team, which means more than just the talent you have on the field, you have in your front office, ownership, management, it all comes together. Look at the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens signed Lamar Jackson. And I know there was issues about Lamar when he was trying to sign his contract and they were doing some stuff. But the reality is the Ravens are one of those teams that were most equipped to pay their quarterback high-end money because they draft well, they develop well, there's a culture there, there's good management, there's good coaching. Good teams can do that. And the Niners, really the ultimate test isn't, do you think Brock Purdy is worth $45, $50, $55 million a year? Is, do you think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and your ownership, are they that good that when you pay your quarterback this kind of money, you will still put out a competitive team year after year? Because here's the thing. The second you pay Purdy, in 2 years, he's going to be out of the top 5 in terms of average annual value, and that's just the way this works. The guys who signed 2 years ago, the guys who signed 3 years ago, everyone's getting paid, and everyone's getting paid so much and so fast that this all works itself out. Again, Mahomes isn't one of the top 6 paid, top 7. I don't think he's in the top 10 anymore as far as highest paid guys. Signed his deal like 3 years ago. No longer in the top 10. That's just how this works. But it's the organizations that can draft, develop, do all the things they need to do. They can afford to sign guys to these super lucrative quarterback contracts. Now, how many, if we were to just ask, again, the Eagles are another perfect example. The Eagles, they could sign Jalen Hurts to pretty much whatever he wants because Howie Roseman is probably the best GM in the sport. And I say probably very loosely. I definitively think he is. So they're going to continue to draft, develop, do what they need to do. They can pay their quarterback a bunch of money and still keep a Super Bowl winning team around him. Now, with that being said, how many teams do we actually think, or how many quarterbacks do we actually think are worth it? Which is a different question. So with that, it's Tuesday. We like to do list on Tuesday. So how many quarterbacks, if you were just ranking guys, are worth $50 million if we were just going on? So we're just going to do a top 10, and we're going to see when do we hit the, would I do it, would I not do it, would I have reservations? So we're going to start number 1 here because we're going to not really a whole lot of suspense. Number 1 quarterback in the NFL, it's still Patrick Mahomes. I know the Chiefs just got their ass kicked in the Super Bowl, and while I loved it, I cherished it, it was a wonderful Sunday. The reality is you can't dispute still what he's done the last 7 years. By far and away the best resume in the sport. By far and away one of the best resumes for any athlete ever. The first 7 years of his career, Mahomes has won, and the answer is obviously yes. Is he worth a $50 million a year quarterback? Easily, you would blank check him and say, whatever we need to do to keep him here, that's what we're going to do. Number 2, I have Josh Allen. Look, I did a lot of pushback on Josh Allen as far as the MVP because I think Lamar had a better season. But if you gun to my head and ask me who's the better player, who's the quarterback I'd want to start with, I would take Allen for some long-term perspective. And again, same way with Mahomes, and Allen just resigned. This is a blank check. This is whatever you want, whatever we got to do to keep you in Buffalo. We're keeping you here. You're our franchise guy, $50 million easily. If it went up to $60 million, you're signing out of these guys. You're blank checking either of them, top 2. And number 3, Lamar Jackson. And I don't think this is a big gap, by the way. I think these 3 guys specifically, because I do think Mahomes is starting to show some signs of being human, which he hasn't throughout most of his career. So I think these 3 are really close to being, I've always separated Mahomes in like a tier of his own. I think that is starting to be worked out a little bit here, where I think these 3 guys are all going to be considered in the same tier by the end of this year, especially if Mahomes doesn't keep getting to Super Bowls or we see that insane pace start to slow down. But Lamar, I'd blank check him. He should be a 3-time NFL MVP, one of the best players in the history of the sport. He is an offense unto himself. What other superlatives can you say about him? Blank check, Lamar Jackson, 3rd best quarterback in the sport. Now, this one I'm a little hesitant on because it feels like the Bengals did blank check Joe Burrow, and now we've seen the issues that come with that. Yes, they re-signed Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but the rest of that roster is some duct tape and glue and draft picks. So, yes, I would blank check Joe Burrow. I think when on your resume, Mahomes' resume is out of this world. It's the best in the sport, right? Burrow probably has the one single biggest achievement on his resume, though, which is I got the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. Some franchises are just naturally dysfunctional. The Bengals are one of them. He got the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl. Blank check, Joe Burrow, 50, 60. By the time this gets him to 70, you're paying him whatever you need to pay him. You're not letting Joe Burrow walk out of your building. Number 5, I had Jalen Hurts. So number 5, I had Stafford here, but with the context of Stafford is now another year older, and Jalen Hurts just beat him in the playoffs, I don't think I would be being honest if I didn't have Hurts in my top 5 right now. And he just won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. Say what you want. Tush push. Doesn't throw well enough. 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. With a head coach that some of us aren't even sure we like, let alone love. Yes, this roster is incredibly talented. But Hurts, the results are the results. And right now, if you were to say who gets if this was like wrestling and you had to earn a belt, he has earned the belt of a top 5 quarterback. 1,000%. Which means number 6, just barely outside of my top 5 now, is Matthew Stafford. I'm really high on Stafford. I think Stafford, with everything that's going on, I mean, like, he had Detroit when they were extremely dysfunctional. He had them relevant, at least. With the Rams, he's obviously gotten to a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl. This was the only team that didn't get blown out by the Eagles in the playoffs. I think Stafford has a lot to do with that. Again, the disparity between the AFC and the NFC, we just got our first 2 NFC quarterbacks, right? So the top 4 are all AFC guys. The NFC is really, really, the quarterback disparity is huge. And one of the biggest things with Stafford is that he is probably the best pure passer in the conference. Hurts obviously does other things as well, and I think he's just, again, with the resume and the belt, and he just beat him. Hurts deserves to be in that top 5. But Stafford's probably the best pure thrower and the best pure passer in the entire conference. So Stafford would be my number 6. Now, this is where I'm going to start having reservations about who I'm willing to pay whatever to. Hurts obviously won a Super Bowl. Get him signed. Gets what the top 4 guys are kind of in a class of themselves. Hurts just won a Super Bowl. He has the belt. I would pay him. Stafford, this is probably unfair because this is a technicality. I think Stafford only has a few years left, so if you told me I had to do Stafford 2 years, $120 million to finish out his career, I would do it. But that's with the expectation and knowledge that I only have to do this for 2 more years. Herbert's at 7. Again, the talent is obviously there. I need something on your resume. Herbert's already got one of the $55 million deals. I would need something on your resume before I'm willing to go even farther with you to get another $55 or $60 million by the time this is up contract. Like, if Herbert gets to his next contract and has still not won a single playoff game, I'm going to have some real reservations about signing him. Obviously, the arm talent, obviously, the overall talent is there. He's had success in the NFL. He looks the part. He's 6'5". He's got the arm. But if we're going into contract number 2, and I've already paid you the $55+ million, and I still have no playoff success, I'm going to have some concerns. Not saying I wouldn't do it, and if you're the Chargers, you probably will pay him anyway, because, again, are you going to let Herbert walk out the building? Not likely. But if I have to pay him $60+ million a year and I still have no playoff wins, I'm going to have some reservations. Number 8, Jared Goff. I think we have to include Goff in the top 10. I'm not sure. This is weird because I don't know if I would pick him over either the guys I have a 9 or 10 if you were to ask me, like, build a franchise with. But the reality is he's been to a Super Bowl with the Rams. He had the Lions as the 1 seed in an extremely competitive NFC North, an extremely competitive NFC. Yes, they have talent. Yes, a lot of people are going to tell you the Lions are more of a culture than a quarterback thing. Running game, defense, all that good stuff. Not so much the defense, but the running game, tough guys, the culture that they built in Detroit. But I also don't feel like you can leave Goff off the top 10 list. And again, similar to Hurts, if you were to just say, does your resume or have you earned the belt of being this high? I think Jared Goff has earned the belt of being a top 10 quarterback. Would I want to pay him $60+ million? I would have a lot of reservations about it. These are the guys who I'm going to have a lot of reservations. Like Herbert, again, Hurts because of what he just did. I would give it to him. Stafford because of age. But Herbert, because I don't have the playoff success, would make me skeptical. And Goff, because I think your resume says you're top 10, but I'm not sure I actually would just eye test you and go, oh yeah, you're clearly one of the 10 best guys. You're clearly worth a blank check as a quarterback. Number 9 is CJ. Now, my 9 and 10 are probably going to be a little controversial here because I think in people's eyes, they've already moved this guy above him. But look, what CJ Stroud's done in 2 years, 2 playoff wins, I don't think people realize how bad. I know Houston had a disappointing season. I get it. But I don't think people realize how bad Houston was just 2 years ago before Stroud got there. And the guy I have at 10, who I think a lot of people have already put above CJ, it just did what CJ did the year prior. And so I don't want to be a victim of the moment. I thought CJ was headed towards top 5, top 6 status. Like, if you would ask me at this time last year, I probably would have had CJ around that Stafford-Herbert area, or above Stafford and Herbert, potentially, because I thought what he did with a franchise that was that bad, him able to come right in, immediately have success, I thought was beyond impressive. But CJ, I would have at 9 right now because he did have a disappointing season, and they just traded away his left tackle. We'll see what they do coming back this year. I'm still a huge CJ Stroud fan, but the facts are the facts, and I'm not sure I can put him much higher than currently. And at number 10, of course, is Bo Nix. I'm just kidding. I would overrate Bo, but at number 10, the offensive rookie of the year, Jaden Daniels. Look, I think a lot of people are going to put Jaden above CJ right now because we just saw what he did this season. But remember, Jaden is basically where CJ was last year. I get it. They were in the NFC Championship game. CJ didn't technically to the AFC Championship game. But I think that Lions victory is a little fluky long term. I don't think they were better than the Lions. I don't think they were one of the 4 best teams in football at the end of the year, even though they were in the championship game and they got smacked in the championship game. But you can't deny what he did as a rookie immediately coming into the NFL. I'm not opposed to putting guys who were that great that early in the top 10. Again, I would have had CJ borderline top 6 last year. But I do need to see a little bit more. And for both him and CJ, would I pay them blank check? No. would I pay him 60? CJ, I want to see one more season. Jaden, also I'd like to see one more season. Again, Jaden, there's going to be some injury concerns there. But if you were to just ask me, these would be my current top 10 quarterbacks. A guy like Baker is a just missed out. He's probably 11 or 12. There's a handful of guys. But after definitively that top 4, who I think are all blank checks, Hurts because of what he just did and Stafford because of age, there's not a lot of guys who I'm just blank checking, giving $50-60 million to. I'm aware guys like Jordan Love and Tua have already been paid that, and also Trevor Lawrence, but it doesn't mean I personally agree with it. And I say all that to say, between the ranking and the earlier conversation, is I would have so many reservations about paying Brock Purdy $55 to almost $60 million, because where does Purdy fall in these lists? Because he's not top 10, and I think you get a couple more guys before you get to him, so he's top 15. And are we just going to say that the whole top half of the league of quarterbacks deserves to be paid like that? I don't agree with that. So this is my actual concern with paying Purdy. But again, I want to be very clear here. The good teams will figure it out. The Chiefs can pay Mahomes as they want because they draft well. The Bills, same. The Ravens, same. The Bengals, this is why they missed the playoffs. They did pay their guy, who I think is worth it, but they still missed the playoffs. Hurts, they can pay him and still put a team around him. Stafford can still pay him, put a team around him. Herbert, we're going to see what him and Jim Harbaugh trying to get him in the Hall of Fame does. Jared Goff, the Lions paid him, built a great team around him. And then we're going to see, obviously, with CJ and Jaden Daniels, as they eventually start to get these contracts, see where they end up. But these are my top 10. My just viewpoint on where I think quarterbacks, if they should be paid the obnoxiously large amount of money that they get. And so, yeah.